Thank you, Prof. And good morning to everyone. Good morning to the delegates that are here on the venue and the people on the internet. Good morning. I am Tembeka Stinani. I'm with the Health Science Research Directorate. And today I'm just going to be taking you through getting to know the Faculty of Health Sciences. So who's who in the faculty, the people you need to know, the committees you need to know and you make nice with. And then I will proceed to also give a presentation on the processes that you have to be aware of when you're submitting your research proposal and ethics application. Some of the information I will not dwell into because it's Miss Africana would give detailed explanation on her session on the overview of M&D proposal. So some of the things might be overlapping between me and her. So to begin with, the Faculty of Health Science is under the leadership of Prof. Zukisa Zingela. And I think we'll share the information with the delegates, the PowerPoint presentations. So I've hyperlinked the details to the website so that you can get to see their faces and get their contact details. So in this presentation, I didn't put down their contact details, just who's who. But if you need to know more and get their contact details, please just click on the link and then it will take you to our website. That way also you can get a bit of orientation to the faculty website and what you need to where you need to see certain things. So I just wanted that opportunity for you to be aware of the faculty website. And she is being assisted by Prof. Daliana van Rooyen as the Executive Dean. And we have the directors of school, which is Prof. Zoleka Soji for the Behavioral and Lifestyle Sciences. We have Prof. Ilse Truter for the Clinical Care and Medicinal Sciences. And we have Dr. Elizabeth Tudoit at the medical school. And then I think this is what's unique about our faculty is that we have the director of research, which is currently Prof. Molariri, and director of learning and teaching, Prof. Nanette Smith. In terms of the HOD, going according to schools, in the schools of behavioral sciences and lifestyle sciences, we have Dr. Aisha Kolvadia with HMS. We have Prof. Annelian Friesa in human nutrition and dietetics. We have Ms. Cheryl Swanepoel, I think, sorry, I didn't put the name, for environmental health. And we have Prof. Magnolia Ngobositole for psychology. We have Prof. Fiona Goliath for social development professions. When we move to the clinical care and medicinal sciences, we have Ms. Sipogazi Dili for medical laboratory science. We have Ms. Razana Williams for radiography. We have Dr. Nolundi Khadana for nursing. We have Mr. Paul Allen at emergency medical care. And we have Dr. Terry Lynn Fogarty for pharmacy. At the medical school, we have Prof. Elma De Vries, who's the program coordinator for the medicine program. And for us at the research directorate, we have Prof. Milaruri, again, the acting director. There is a biostatistician, Dr. Wilbert Sibanda, who provides statistical services to our students and staff members. We have Ms. Berthlin in research support, and she's the one who's assisting us with our presentations here. We have Ms. Sugisiwe Sifile, who's sitting there at the back, and myself, who's responsible for the research portfolio. We have Ms. Marilyn Africana. She's with us today. She's the Faculty Academic Administration Manager. And she oversees all academic administration of undergrad and postgraduate programs. And then specifically for postgraduate, which is master's and doctorate, we have Mr. Francis Kanyile, who is our postgraduate consultant. So you're going to be working together with these two people a lot, and everything that you need to know in terms of academic administration, all things academic related, forms, processes, everything. These are the two people that you're going to be communicating with. I've put on the departmental representatives to our faculty committees, and these people are very integral when you are submitting to the faculty, because all of your submissions, they have to go through them, because then they make sure that everything is complete and everything is in order before it reaches faculty, to avoid delays in terms of if you are submitting directly to the faculty and there's a lot that is missing and that back and forth. So with each department, all 10 departments in our faculty, we have a representative. We will share this information, I think, with the students, but if we look at who's chairing the committees, Prof. Melaruri is the chair. And for human nutrition and dietetics, we have Miss Tracy Hatton as the representative and Prof. Durant as well. We don't have anybody from the emergency medical care yet. For environmental health, Dr. Sean Ramrup is the representative. For human movement science, Dr. Aisha Kolvadia is the representative. For medical laboratory science, we have Prof. Nanette Smith. For nursing science, we have Dr. David Morton, who's with us today. For pharmacy, we have Dr. Ndokozo Tambuza and Dr. Mbali Luvunokele. For psychology, we have Dr. Alida Sanderson. And for radiography, it's Ms. Razana Williams. For social development, we have Dr. Naivashni Perumal. For medical school, we have Dr. Simo Zulu. And for us, we have our Reg H representative, which is Professor Joanne Naidu, who represents the faculty at the Institutional Research Committee for Human. And Prof. Elsa Truter is our representative for Research Ethics Committee for Animals. I forgot to include that. So in terms of our health science research, we conduct research that is aligned to the SDG goals. And if you are within the health sector, you are aware of the goal number 3 specifically, which is good health and well-being. But our research is also community driven in that we try to find solutions that that are beneficial for the community that we serve. And we conduct sustainable, so we perform research or conduct research that kind of give sustainable solutions for underprivileged communities. And for example, we have the Kazibantu study, which looks at physical activity of school children in underprivileged communities. We have the WASH project from Prof. Malari's department, which looks at hygiene practices in ECD centers. When we look at health sciences in numbers, and this is the numbers for 2022 in terms of graduations, but for 2023, currently we have 228 students who are enrolled with us for master's and doctoral students. And for the 2022 academic year, we have 45 MNDs graduating. Some have already graduated in the December graduation, and then some are going to graduate now in April, of which 36 of those are master's students and 9 of those are PhD students. The academics staff profile, then we have over 126 academic staff serving the MND students, and approximately over 46 of them have PhDs as their highest qualifications. Now we move on to the proposal submission. So what's important is what to submit, how to submit, and when to submit. So in terms of the MND policy, if you are a master's full research student, so master's by dissertation student, you have to submit your PhD within 6 months of you registering. And then if you are a master's by coursework student, you need to submit your proposal within 6 months of you registering for the treatise module. So you find that in some qualifications, the coursework students, they register for their treatise module in the first year of their study, whereas in other departments, I think pharmacy, industrial, they register for their treatise in the second year of study. So as a full research master's student, 6 months, 6 months after registration. And then for coursework, it's 6 months after registering for the treatise module. And then for a PhD student, you have a year. You need to submit your proposal within 1 year of you registering for your PhD. And the process is that you first submit your proposal to serve at your departmental research committee. And for the departmental processes, department does things a bit different. You then need to contact the departmental rep that I shared with you as to getting to know the department processes and the dates that you need to submit in. But the first step is to get your proposal approved at department. Once it has been approved at department, then it can be submitted to FPGSC. Once it's submitted to FPGSC, it will then go to Reg H depending on the risk level of your study. So you need to then submit the proposal with all appendices, and by that we mean that it should have, if you are using a survey, the questionnaire should be there. If you're using an interview, the interview questions should be there. All the gatekeeper letters should be there. All request letters for approval should be there. You need to submit the departmental evaluation form or the DRC minutes. By that we mean that when you submit your proposal to the department, it gets allocated to the reviewer. Some departments, they complete the formal evaluation form. Some departments would provide you with feedback on in whatever format that they provide you with. But that feedback needs to accompany your submission because it is a confirmation for the faculty that the department has approved the proposal, and then it can be submitted to FPGSC. If you don't have that, we will send the proposal back because it's incomplete and we have no way of knowing that the proposal went through the proper channel at departmental level. The risk assessment and the wreckage form with all signature. The wreckage form that's currently being used has both of them in one. So you need to complete all of that in full. The risk assessment form requires you to tick certain boxes and put on a number at the end so that when the reviewers are looking at it, they can see what risk level your study is at. You need to complete that in full. If you didn't tweak anything in a column, you put 0. You don't leave it blank. And then the wreckage form, all signatures should be there. It's your signature first, and then followed by your supervisor and your HOD. You find that we will turn it back if we see that your signature is saying the 23rd of March, 2023, and then the HOD's signature is saying 10 of January, 2023. So there shouldn't be discrepancies in terms of the dates and the signatories, and that you and your supervisor have to sign first, and then after that, the HOD signs. So when you are submitting to us, just double check that everything is there, all the dates are in sync, or the HOD's date can be after your date, but it can be the same or after, but it can be before. So those are some of the mistakes that we've picked up when students are submitting. So then what happens is that I will share the dates later on in this presentation. You submit your proposal before the agenda deadline date to the faculty, which is normally early in the month or even at the previous month for the following month. we put your proposal on the agenda, and then it serves at FPGSC. And after the meeting date, you need to give the faculty a period of 2 weeks to give you feedback. We normally make sure that we've sent all of the feedback within the first week after the meeting. And then after that, you have 3 months to work on revisions and submit to the liaison person. So when we are sending you feedback, we will give you the details of who is the liaison person for you. We'll give you the details of when is the next submission date in case you are going to submit to Reg H. The ethics decision is Reg H. And once if it's provisionally accepted and then you've sent the revised documents to the liaison person, you also need to give them at least a period of 2 weeks to get back to you in terms of the revised documents. So these are some of the timelines that you need to take into account as you are planning your study and you are writing up your proposal. And another thing is that if we send feedback and on the ethics decision, it's written Reg H. When you're submitting to the liaison person, you should take that into account. You cannot submit to the liaison person today, and then the next day is the Reg H deadline, because you're going to miss the submission for Reg H for that month. You need to give them a grace period of 2 weeks. So if you know that you have a submission coming up, at least submit 2 weeks before the Reg H deadline so that you can make that submission. Always keep us in copy. I will get into it later on as to how to submit back to us. Always keep us in copy, because then we are able to follow up with the liaison persons on your behalf. If we see that maybe it's been 2 weeks and we are not sure if they've responded or not, then out of courtesy, we do email them to ask if they've had a chance to look at the revisions. And so for the faculty processes, if your proposal is going to be approved at faculty level only, so it's a low risk study, after the approval of the liaison person, so you've sent revised documents to the liaison person and they've indicated that they are happy with the changes that you've made and how you attended to the recommendations, you need to then again re-sign the form. Because remember that you've made the changes to the form, so it needs to be endorsed again by yourself, by your supervisor, and by the HOD. What we've picked up, and believe me, I've been working on ethics for 5 to 6 years now. I will pick it up that you just edited the form without getting new signatures, and I'll tell you that you need to get new signatures because the HOD needs to be aware that they are endorsing a different form. So it's a bit shady if you edit the form, and because I will pick it up. So after that's done, then you submit that documentation to us. We issue the ethics letter. If your proposal is going to be approved at faculty level, we issue the ethics letter. There are conditions of approval, and your supervisor needs to sign that and send it back to us. Only after your supervisor has signed and sent it back to us, then you can start with data collection. So that is for the low risk study. For the medium to high risk study, it means that you get feedback from the faculty, you work on feedback, you send to the liaison person. The liaison person is happy with the changes, you get all the signatories, you send to us, we prepare the documentation and we submit it to Reg H for you. And then once you've submitted it to Reg H, then the Reg H secretaries will then provide you feedback with the details of the liaison person and so forth. We unfortunately do not, after submitting to Reg H, we are not kept in copy when they're sending feedback. However, I think the time frame is still the same, that within 2 to 3 weeks, then the liaison person needs to get back to you. If they don't get back to you, then you can follow up with them. If maybe on one or two occasions they're still not responding, you can involve us at faculty as early as possible, because it's very easy for us to follow up with a regage and then for them to follow up with their reviewers, and then you can get feedback. But I will talk through some of the strategies on how to ensure that you get a much quicker turnaround when you are emailing the liaison person later on. And then similarly with Reg H as well, feedback is attended within 3 months. Now, what that means, it means that within you have 3 months to submit to the liaison person. If you don't submit by that 3 months, the implication is that you've withdrawn your study. So when you submit again, you're going to start from scratch. Your proposal will have to serve at faculty, and then it's allocated people, and then the same process applies. So we really try to encourage students to make sure that when they've received, on the date of receipt of the email and feedback, you have 3 months to attend to that and send it to the liaison person. How we see that's not been done is that we keep record. Whenever we're making the agenda, we have a record of the proposals that are pending. And we will see that this proposal has been on the agenda and it's served maybe in January 2021, and in January 2023, and it's May now, and there's no indication that it's been submitted to the liaison person. We do, out of courtesy, send you a reminder. However, it should be your responsibility as the student to ensure that you adhere to the conditions of approval for your proposal. And so that was for the provisionally accepted proposal at faculty level. Sometimes for reasons whatsoever, it happens that you submit to the faculty, and then the faculty reviews your proposal, and they say that you have to resubmit back to the faculty. So they can't process it any further. It needs to be referred back to the department to be rectified, the proposal, and then resubmitted. Resubmission means that it's going to serve at a full meeting again. So if it's provisionally accepted in the previous slide, once the liaison person has approved the changes, then we issue the ethics letter. However, with resubmission, it means that once the liaison person has said that they're happy with the changes, they're saying that they are happy with the changes, that the proposal can be submitted to the FPGSE committee to serve at a full meeting, and then the same process applies. I'm not sure if anybody has any resubmission, because I've realized that a lot of people don't understand what resubmission means. So if you have a question about that, you can ask me for clarity before I can move on. Yes, Prof. There's a question online. Yes, we do share the schedule with all of our postgraduate students. It is on this presentation later on, but we will also share that via email to our current students. The website, our Health Science Research Directorate website, and the Faculty of Health Sciences website also has those dates. And you can also get them from the departmental reps. So I've just made an example of how do you submit your revised documents. So in terms of the FPGSC resolution and the ethics, that is what we as the faculty will give to you. So when we say that your proposal is accepted subject to revisions being made to the satisfaction of the liaison person. So it means that the liaison person has to be happy with your revisions before we can say that the proposal is accepted. And then we'll say that you must submit revised documents to the liaison person. We'll give you their email addresses, and please copy us, because remember we said that the importance of copying us is to make sure that we follow up with the liaison person for you. When we see that 2 weeks has passed and we haven't seen anything, then we can just remind them. It's much easier for them to respond to us than they would if you are emailing yourself. And then the ethics decision column, If it says FGSC, then it means that the faculty is the last stage of approval. They will issue the ethics letter. If it says Reg H, then it means that we're sending up your proposal to the Research Ethics Committee. So by whom? Preferably by your supervisor. Why? Because they tend to be more formal in terms of how they write in their emails, but they are colleagues with the reviewers. So the reviewer is most likely to pick up the email address of the supervisor than they would if you are a student and you're sending from a private email. And if you are doing the submission yourself as a student, preferably from the official Mandela Uni student email address, because, you know, with cybersecurity, you see a submission from a private email address, you don't really take care, or you don't really, you're a bit skeptical sometimes. So we use the university email addresses to communicate with the student. So even when we are sending feedback, we're gonna send it to your student email address. We don't send official communication to students via their private email address. If you don't have access to your student email address, you need to sort that issue with ICT. They will be able to assist you, or maybe you can do something in terms of forwarding your emails from the university email address to your personal email address. But our official mode of communication with you is with your student email address. And I've made an example of how not to send a revised document. If you see that there is no one in the copy line, the subject line is just written research, and the document name is just research, and then good day, please find attached. If I get something like that, I'm going to think it's one of those spam messages. Somebody was hacked and then a message came up. I'm not gonna open that. And what happens? Your document sits with the relevant person for over a month. We have no way of following up because we are not kept in copy. It's not moving. But then this is how you can send. If you as the student is sending the revised documentation, you've put in your supervisor's email address on the people that are copied. You've put my email address and Zugisiwe's email address. The subject line is saying FPGSC revisions. Then they know that they are the liaison person. And then, dear whoever, I trust that you are well. I would like to extend my gratitude to reviewers for the feedback provided, because believe me, they work very hard on your proposals. I have copied in my supervisor in this submission as confirmation that they have approved for the revised documents to be submitted to you as the liaison person. Because remember, even with revisions, your supervisor still needs to okay them to say these revisions are fine, and then they can be submitted to the liaison person. If your supervisor is not copied there, then we're going to come back to you to say, please copy in your supervisor on your submission as confirmation that he has read the proposal again and he's happy with the changes made, and for the revised documents to be submitted to faculty. And then I have attached here with the revised documents. I forgot to make an attachment, but the file name there, it's your initials. So if you are Tembeka Stinani, T_Stinani, FPGSC revised documents, then they know which student the document belongs into. I have attached here with revised documents. For ease, I have highlighted where changes were made, and I have provided the action memo detailing how feedback was attended to. When you are submitting, remember, sometimes your documents are 78 pages. It's not fair for you to just submit a blank document to the reviewer, because then they have to go from page 1 to the last page, seeing which changes were made. So for ease and for an easier and fast turnaround, you need to highlight where all the changes were made. And you also need to provide an action memo. An action memo, you can design it however way you want, but basically what we mean by action memo is that you take each comment and then you state how it was attended and where you can find the change. You can either say I've hyperlinked this to the change, or this is in page 20, line whatever, however way, whatever format you want, but we need to be able to see how feedback was attended to. This is where also in a case where maybe you are not attending to a recommendation that was made, you can say as long as much as this comment or the suggestion was made, we've noted it. However, we've decided not to implement it because of 1, 2, and 3, and 4, so that the reviewers are aware. Sometimes they don't really get what you were writing, but if they are aware as to why you chose to go with a certain thing, then they will be able to be happy with your changes, and it cuts that back and forth time between you and the reviewer going on about one change that was not made. So if you're not implementing a suggestion that was made, then you need to say, we've noted this comment, however, we've decided not to implement it because of 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And that's it. So the reviewer then looks at the action memo, sees how feedback was attended to, goes to the document where it was highlighted, and then depending on what, sometimes it happens that they have a few more comments that they make, and then you submit back to them. Once they're happy, they will inform us at faculty that it can then be approved, and whatever approval process that's next, then we action that. So this is very important if you are submitting as a student, to make sure that you submit in such a way. Sometimes also it happens that once once your document has been approved, maybe 3 months down the line or so, you want to make a change. You can't just make a change to your proposal without approval. So if you need to make a change, you need to submit what we call an amendment form. It is available at the RegEdge website, and then I've provided you with the RegEdge website details there. You can click and go to them, because that is one website that you need to orientate yourself as a postgraduate student. It details all research ethics processes. It has all of the documents that you need to read when you are writing your proposal, or some ethical considerations on when you are writing your proposal, and also when you are conducting your study. So I didn't want to put those forms here. I want you to go onto their website and get them yourself, because sometimes they regularly update those forms, and we give you a form only to realize that they've updated it a month earlier. So there is a form, and with all the submissions, it goes via our office. You don't submit straight to RegEdge. You always submit to us, and then we'll make the submission for you at RegEdge. If you want to follow up on something, maybe you need any clarity on something, while your form has been submitted and you haven't received any feedback, first point of contact is the faculty, and it's not straight to RegEdge, because it's easier for us to email RegEdge to ask for you than it is for you. And more likely they will respond faster to us than they will respond to you as a student. Okay. Now we have, in terms of progress, we have the faculty progress reports, and we have the RegEdge progress report when it comes to research. The faculty progress report, all health science students have to complete those. The call opens twice a year, and it's completed online by yourself and your supervisor. The exemption is only for those that are not registered for their treatise module. So all of the students, whether or not you have submitted your proposal, you need to complete the faculty progress report. The call goes to high. So the first one will maybe be somewhere in between June, July for the first semester. And then the last one will be later on in the year around October, November for the second semester. And both of the reports are important because then in that report we review the reports and we get to see where the students are in terms of their proposals, but where they are needing help. And also when we write the narrative report, we do share that with the departments to make the departments aware that there are so many students in their departments who needs to still complete proposals. And sometimes on that progress report as well, we do have a section where we're asking you of any developmental workshops that will assist you, so that when we're planning our workshops, we take into account what the current needs of our students are, and then we can provide those workshops to assist students. And then for the Reg H, only those with ethics approval needs to complete the Reg H progress report. So if the faculty has issued the ethics letter for you, or the Reg H has issued the ethics letter, you need to then submit the progress report. The submission dates for the Reg H progress report is continuous, in that if it's within a 1 calendar year, in that if you received an ethics approval in February, then you need to submit the progress report before the next February. So depending on the approval date, 1 calendar year, in that approval date, you need to submit the progress report. Also, the ethics approval is only for a year. So if you see that you haven't completed your data collection and a year is approaching, you need to then submit an extension form, because you can't continue collecting data if your ethics approval has lapsed. If you don't, normally we advise students to submit 8 weeks before, which is 2 months before the ethics lapse, because if you don't submit and it's 2 weeks later, your approval, let's say, was granted on the 1st of April 2022, and then it's the 7th of April 2023, and you apply for an extension, we're going to say you can't apply for an extension. Your proposal has to be re-reviewed at the faculty. So that whole FPGSC submission process applies again, which further delays you, and you cannot collect data at that point when we are waiting for that. Similarly, when you've submitted for an amendment, you can't collect data until that amendment is approved. Yes. I think I'm muted. Can you hear me online?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Which part was I muted?
I heard everything.
Oh, I wasn't muted.
It has been resolved.
Sorry?
I couldn't hear you before, but I can hear you now.
From which section?
About 5 minutes ago, but it has been resolved.
I think it must be your network, because I've been listening all this time and I could hear Tembeka very well, and I'm using a cell phone.
Okay. But I think if it's 5 minutes ago, I
Tembeka.
was on the faculty progress report, and I've provided that we're going to share the presentation, but you are most welcome to send us an email, and then we can respond if you have got any questions. For time, I would please just ask to move on. And then this slide just shows what you need to submit and when do you need to submit it in terms of Reg H, if you're needing amendment extensions, and when to submit the progress report. I'm not going to go into details about that because I've already explained the basics of what you need to do. And then these are our meeting dates. I've only included those that are still coming. So the next submission date for our faculty is the 21st of April. And if you submit by this date, your proposal is going to be serving at the 25th of May meeting. And then for the 26th of May, you submit for June. So that's how it works. And then if you look at the third column, those are all the Reg H agenda closing dates. So whenever you're submitting at the faculty meeting, you need to see which Reg H meeting are you targeting and which meeting is most feasible for you to submit to. So for example, if you're submitting now at faculty on the 21st of April, you've already missed, you're going to miss the submission for the May meeting at Reg H. So your proposal is most likely to go to the June Reg H meeting. So always when you're planning around, always plan around the faculty dates, but also targeting the Reg H dates in case your proposal is referred to them. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to allow for questions and comments if there's any on the floor and online. Questions on the floor? Online? Okay, we've got a question here.
Just wanted to find out what would be the reasons for resubmission.
I'm going to give to Prof. Milariri to answer. What are the reasons for a proposal to be resubmitted, to be called for resubmission?
Just like what she indicated, if, for instance, your objectives are not in alignment with the methodology, is a big problem because at the end of the day, you may not be able to get the outcome. So if your methodology has a big flaw, is a concern. If the other aspects, let's say maybe there are editorial issues, or maybe you did not cite all the list, whatever, all those ones, they can be sent to you to make it up. But when there is a major flaw in methodology, and I'll give you an instance. If, for instance, you are to work with a population and sample that population, and your sample size, we don't know how you determined it. You just said you're going to work with 20 people or 60 people or even 1,000. We need to know how did you determine this, because it needs to be valid for it to help you achieve that outcome, because without a representative number, then your result will not be valid. So we need to just make sure that that aspect is covered. And then you need to also clearly indicate your enrollment criteria. Did you just take everybody, or do you have inclusion and exclusion? So most of the things based on your methodology, when they are not clear, then it becomes an issue. Okay, so if it is maybe a minor thing to fix up, you can be also fix it up. But when it's reoccurring and is graduating to major flaws in other things, then it will be resubmitted so that you look at it, fix it up, and resubmit. But let me also give to Dave, in case I missed something here, to give us an idea on what may call for a resubmission. Thank you.
Thank you. I think basically with the resubmission, you're looking at a study which might not be within the scope of a particular degree that could also influence it. So in other words, if it's either beyond the scope, in other words, you are going to it's going to be very difficult for you to finish. So you might be a master's student and you are trying to do a study which is pitched at a PhD level. You could be asked to resubmit to make it easier for you. So it's really just to safeguard you as a student. And then if you are on the other side, if you're a PhD student and you've got a study which is pitched at a master's level, you'll be asked to adjust it so that it is pitched to the right level, again, to safeguard you as the student. So when the external examiner looks at your study, you are not pitching it below the degree requirements. And that's a big one, that one. There are other things as well. And then the committee will discuss it. and sometimes it's quite a heated discussion. I'm joking. It's quite, the people discuss it seriously because they take every proposal seriously, and then we really are looking to really make it the best decision for that student and their supervisors. There's no other reason. We really just want to protect you and your studies. So it's all good. It's never a bad thing to resubmit. So if you don't look at it as a negative thing, if you do have to resubmit and nobody remembers, so if it happens, it's all good. Don't worry about it. It's an opportunity to learn.
Also, there is an opportunity for the student and the supervisor to meet with the liaison person to discuss feedback if it's called for resubmission, or even if it's not called for resubmission, but there is some form of feedback that you're not understanding. You do have the opportunity to request a meeting with the liaison person so that they can explain it to you further. I don't know if there's any questions again on the floor or online before I can give off to Marilyn. Nothing online. Okay, thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody in the venue and online. As Timbeka introduced myself, I am Marilyn Afrikaner. I am the Faculty Academic Administration Manager for the Faculty of Health Sciences, and I basically oversee the undergraduate, postgraduate qualifications, and the faculty committee work. We'll go to the next slide. Today I'm standing in, mostly you will be in contact with your faculty academic administration postgraduate consultant, which is Mr. Francis Kanile. Unfortunately, he cannot join today, still being on leave, but I'm standing in for him. But he's going to be your person, very important. You won't always see him, but you will be there in the background to assist you with any matter pertaining to academic administration for your M or D degree. My presentation today will basically cover the most important aspects for a new MOD student within the M&D policy, from registration up until graduation, which means if you are within your 2 years of study, everything I've just extracted the most important things that is important to a new, especially M&D student, which haven't been in that space before. First of all, registration, very exciting. In the initial year of study, prospective candidates for postgraduate degrees involving research only, that is the master's and doctoral degrees by research, are permitted to register throughout the year. Our coursework qualifications need to be registered as per with the undergraduate qualifications on the first day of classes. But the M&Ds by research can register throughout the year. However, it should be noted that the first year of registration will only be recognized as a full academic year in terms of the minimum maximum duration of studies if registration takes place on or before the last working day of April of any given year. So for all our M&D students, for your 2023 academic year to count, please finalize your registration by the end of this month. If you register from May onwards, it will be pro rata registration and it will not count. Some of our M&D students that are registering as a full-time basis, and there is a possibility for them completing and handing in the assessment copies in December. This is important in order to register by the end of this month. So all our M&Ds and students would like you to finalize your online registration by the end of this month. Online registration has closed for all undergraduate and postgraduate students. As indicated, M&Ds can register throughout the year, but our system don't have the intelligence to know that this is an undergraduate student who cannot register now in April because it's too late. Classes have already started, but you as M&D students can register anytime during the year. Our offices are there to assist with registration. It means you just have to fill in a manual registration form, but we are available and you can email Mr. Canhelia with your registration form, and then we will do it on your behalf and send you a proof of registration once done. Thank you. Okay, and lastly, postgraduate candidates who register after the last working day of April will pay pro rata fees for the first year of study, which means it's a lesser fee than you have registered in January or February. This one, some students are not able to finalize, and they do in May, the finance is clear then they are allowed to register pro rata, and then that is indicated will not count as an official full academic year. Thank you. Okay. Also important to know before you register what offering type you will be registering, especially for applying for funding. Some students, when they initially apply and submitted, the circumstances were different. They might have been unemployed, gotten employment, but I encourage everybody before you register, make sure that you are registered for the correct offering type. I've included the definition. Sometimes students ask, what is the definition of a full-time, part-time student? I'll quickly indicate. Full-time candidate is defined as the following. One who is available on a day-to-day basis to attend and participate in the postgraduate program or the faculty in which he or she is registered, which means you are not working full-time. You don't have an 8 to 5 job from Monday to Friday. You're like an undergraduate student who studies full-time and do not have employment. That's a full-time candidate. Some of our students, we know, mature students that are in the working field that might have study leave. They are different scenarios which they are exempted from their work. At work, they get total, they attend classes, they are on campus as a full-time students. Theirs are different. They sometimes also register as a full-time student. Once their study leave has lapsed and they go back to work, then they have to change to part-time. So there are those instances where employed staff members where work has officially given you time off and you don't work at all for that year. You only attend studies within nursing. We had that with our BCA honors and our MCA coursework students. So there are instances that is allowable with the approval of the employer, and the department has that on file also. Then most of our students that are working, if you don't fit the description above, a candidate who does not fulfill the definition of a full-time student will be automatically deemed by the university as a part-time candidate. Also, if you're changing vice versa, if you are changing before you register, you have been admitted, as I said last year, maybe you were unemployed, you've got an employment now and you'd like to change to part-time, we can do it on the system, provided that the department and the supervisor approves that your registration be changed from part-time or full-time. If you change your offering type after you've officially registered and are on the system, then it has to go to the Faculty Postgraduate Studies Committee for approval with the endorsement of your supervisor, head of department, and then after Faculty Postgraduate Committee has approved it, we may change it on the system for you. Okay, registration continued. Very importantly, for every year, continued registration of a postgraduate candidate is subject to an annual favorable progress report. Mbeka elaborated on that. It's done twice a year and we'll send out the call. Please check your student email is done online. And important is also every year your registration lapses at the end of the year. So all M&D candidates are required to renew the registration annually within the periods designated by the university. For senior continuing students, it's usually by the mid of March of each year until your studies are completed. So every year, so 2024, you will have to re-register, 2025 to re-register until officially you complete your degree. You may stop me anytime if you have questions. As I go through the slide, please just, I will look down a platform, just raise your hand and in the venue, just wink and show me, then I'll stop. Thank you. Important dates to 2023. Sometimes, as we know, life happens, your circumstances change, you are registered. Now you unfortunately have to cancel your studies, sometimes due to a traumatic event in your personal life that influences your studies. Sometimes our MNDs down that there's liability dates. So I'm only going to explain the year modules in terms of cancellation days that the university will charge you fees. Because all our MNDs are registered for year qualifications. So the first block period is year. That is when the lectures or start and end. Then if you cancel from the 21st of March until the 7th of August, the university will charge you 50% liability. Any cancellations received from the 8th of August until the 31st of December, you are 100% liable for the fees. Sometimes it's also good to know, especially if you are in the middle of the year and sometimes students say, but I want to cancel. And then we have to look at this. If you're really going to be charged for the whole year, please keep on and do not cancel because there's financial liabilities. It serves no purpose or cancel sometimes that we have to look and you can weigh up your options and do your research, what would be the best. But this, we do not want any of you to cancel after you've registered, but sometimes life happens and it's important to know the cancellation liability dates for the year, as with the undergraduates as well. My next slide basically covers the minimum and the maximum duration of studies. For a master's degree, the minimum in order for the degree to be awarded is 1 year. For a doctoral degree, it is 2 years, and that is full-time studies. You're not employed, you're only studying as like when you did your undergraduate degree. Your studies is your full-time job. The maximum duration of studies, important. For full-time studies, after you have exceeded the maximum duration of studies, we put blocks on as per the M&D policy. Blocks on students' accounts, and you have to apply for an extension in studies. It's very important to know as you progress through your studies that I've now reached my maximum duration and I need to hand in my assessment copies. So all our M's and D's that have reached the maximum durations of studies, we link them as final years, possible hand-ins for graduation. For full-time studies, master's by coursework or full research by dissertation, 3 years. Doctoral studies, 4 years on a full-time basis. So you can happily year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4 register. Within year 4, if you're a D studying full-time, we will inform you and say, dear sir, ma'am, you have reached your maximum duration of studies. If you foresee you're unable to hand in your assessment copies for graduation for the following year in December, please submit an extension in studies application in order to renew your registration for the following year. Most of the time, students need maximum year and then they finish and wrap it up. So that's for full-time studies, part-time studies, master's degree by coursework and full research by dissertation, 4 years, and doctoral studies, 6 years. Do you have any questions before I go on? You still good?
Hi, Mrs. Africana. Thank you so much for the presentation. My question is not based on the slide, but on something that you've mentioned before. I've seen that you've mentioned that for M&D students, you can register any time of the year, but I would like to know if do our students charge like late registration fee, because I registered around the month end of March, and then I was charged a late registration fee. So I would like to know if like should student be charged like late registration fee if like they're doing their master's or PhD.
Great. Thank you for that question. It's a very good question with all our first year masters and PhD students battle with. Our M&D students for the first year of registration are not liable to pay late enrollment fees. However, when you register, it automatically comes on your student account by default of you registering. But please be aware with student accounts, once they run the validations around when the student accounts are being sent in April, around about this time, April, May, then they reverse the late enrollment fees that was raised on your student account. So then they will debit your student account with that amount. Watch out for it. If it doesn't by June, it's not off your student account, then you're welcome to contact us and we just ask them to correct it. But they do have the validations, but they during the busy period of January, February, they don't get to it. But our students are not aware of it, yes, but it will be reversed. Thank you. Okay, so the next step, you are now registered. Importantly, now the most important relationship at this university is with your supervisor that will be supervising, your supervisor and co-supervisor. After you've registered and you know who's going to be your supervisor, all supervisors are required to enter a specific supervisory agreement or memorandum of understanding with candidates which specifies the responsibilities and the rights of both parties in terms of the supervision process. This agreement should be formally documented and should include the following aspects. These are the two main areas: the minimum frequency of formal feedback consultations, as well as the responsibility for initiating such consultations in their format. The nature, extent, and circumstances of the commentary on work handed in by the candidate, example, verbal feedback, notes on a draft chapter, a letter in which methodological errors or erroneous assumptions are spelled out, and the time taken by the supervisors to provide such feedback. This comes from our M&D policy, which should be in place for all our new M&Ds. So do that. Memorandum of understanding, you're submitting your first draft. When can you expect? You all have to consult and agree to it. Dear Prof, Dr, Mr, what would be a reasonable time for me to accept feedback, receive feedback from you so that you can progress? Some will say 3 weeks, but this is what you and your supervisor will have to negotiate with. I have a copy from the M&D policy if you'd like to look at it. Once Timbeka shares with everybody our presentations, as in the M&D policy, there's a learning agreement template that can be shared with everybody. You can see what type of questions, what type of things you and your supervisor need to jot down in writing and agree to, especially in the onset of your relationship, starting with the supervisory process. Is there anybody a question? May I continue? With my following two slides, I'll discuss the responsibilities of you, the supervisor, and you as a student. Can I continue? Just give it a second. Does it want to go to the next slide? Thank you, Barthin. Okay. Responsibilities, there's a few. I like to go through each individual one. I'll quickly list. Is responsibility outlined are considered to be reasonable expectations of academics and any other person who are undertaking the supervision of masters and doctoral candidates. They must liaise and cooperate with the head of department, director of schools, and or the executive dean and relevant academic support units to ensure that the students are able to access basic resources such as library, laboratory space, chemicals, assessing bursaries and scholarships where the student meets the criteria, etc., reasonably required by postgraduate candidate. You need to set you up with these important critical resources with your onset of your research. Clarify respective roles of student supervisor and co-supervisor where relevant to ensure that student and supervisors are clear about the channel of communication as well as expectations. Preferably, such clarification should be contained in a supervisory or learning agreement. Here they make reference of it as well, that you have a document that you can refer to if in the event things does not go well or you don't get feedback or whatever reason. Okay, confirm my contact with the student regularly, minimum once an academic term within 3 months, to provide academic guidance to ensure the development and mastery of research skills and competencies relevant to the discipline and the specific study, and to ensure adherence to university requirements and or discipline standards. You are not alone. Supervisors with you. You can see every step of the way. They are the primary responsible person. You are the primary investigator, but overall, our supervisors are accountable for the research that you are doing. Thank you. Monitor progress, very important. Monitor progress of student and submit reports on student progress as required by the university and by relevant scholarship funding bodies. You applied for funding, progress reports that you need to fill in, goes to your supervisor for endorsement to say the student has progressed well and all her goals, his or her goals that she has set out or he has set out for herself has been obtained. So with the progress report, you always will be between the two of you, student and supervisor, when submitting progress reports, be it for funding or for you to continue with your studies. Last slide on the responsibilities of the supervisor. This is also for the student, will overlap with your responsibilities and his or hers. Keep a record of supervision sessions and provide feedback within time frame agreed upon to enable student progress. That's very important communication. We want you to progress within your studies and then not have delays in your study. And legally, supervisors must maintain an adherence to accepted safety and health standards, as well as ethical research practice as per Nelson Mandela University Code of Conduct for Researchers. So important also, as a staff member, you must ensure that your research is done in an ethical manner to protect your participants as well. Thank you. Provide the relevant information to the students so that the candidate submits the treatise, dissertation, thesis for examination and final submission in accordance with the university or faculty-specific rules. When you are reaching the end of your studies, you need to hand in your assessment copies. Your supervisor will guide you how to do it. What is the requirement in terms of documentation, and final sign off to submit final assessment copies for evaluation. Lastly, for our doctoral candidates, advise the students regarding the submission of declaration of manuscript at the time of approval of examiner reports for the purposes of awarding of doctoral degrees, and that is only for the Ds. Once you are graduating, we need to have a declaration of manuscript at the time before. This is a compulsory requirement for your degree to be awarded. Most importantly, student, what are your responsibilities in your registration in your academic life going forward? Complete all the required components of the academic program as stipulated. Plan and execute the research study as agreed to with the guidance of your supervisor and co-supervisor where applicable. You are the driver. You are the leader. You are responsible for your own studies. It's your aim. It's your degree. Once you graduate, your name will be on that certificate. Ensure that the research proposal is submitted for approval within the stipulated time frame in accordance with the university rules. We'll touch on it a little bit later. Timbeka also made reference to the time frames for proposals to be submitted. I'm going to go into depth there. Same also adherence to the principles of accepted safety and health standards, ethical research practice as per the Nelson Mandela University Code of Conduct for Research. Everything must be done in an ethical manner and ethical approval received before you start data collection. Importantly, your M, your D, make regular appointments with your supervisors to update supervisors on progress or any difficulty encountered in executing the academic project as planned to ensure timely remedial action where required. That is why you have a supervisor, that they are there for you. Last slide, also important, keep a record of your supervision sessions and decisions agreed to at each meeting, because the following one, then you have to now determine these were my goals, my 3 things or tasks that want to be completed. This is how far it is. So everything is communication. Submit regular outputs from the academic project to ensure effective guidance and input from the supervisors. You have to submit it. Supervisors don't need to give you revisions to do. It's not the supervisor's job to say, yeah, ask after a month, can you please resubmit your revised document for check off that you can start off with the next phase of your study. So it's the student's responsibility to do that. The supervisors do not need to prompt you to get it out from you or to request it from you, very importantly. Take responsibility for your final production of your thesis, dissertation, thesis, a treatise for examination and final submission in accordance with the university or faculty-specific rules. This is very exciting at this stage once you're ready to hand in your assessment copies. Submit a manuscript to the supervisor prior to the time of approval of examiner reports. These are for our awarding of our M's and D's, a compulsory requirement. As previously mentioned, your degree, your D cannot be awarded without this. And most lastly, renew annual registration for the academic program within the periods as stipulated by the university until the completion of your degree, till you are done. If you hand in your assessment copies for graduation, so students that have handed in December for April 23 graduation, they don't obviously need to register because they have handed in the assessment copies. Depends on the outcome. Our faculty office contacts those students individually if there's a problem, for example, to register. So after you've handed in your assessment copies in time for graduation, there's certain deadlines that has to be met. We don't need to register, but sometimes it's unfortunate situations. That's why we ask students to adhere to the deadlines, that you do not need to register again. We had unfortunate situations. If students hand in April, the deadline was beginning of December, and then they hand in February. There's no guarantee from the university side that you will get your examiner reports back in time for April graduation if you only handing in February, as an example, end of February, because for M's, you need to give the examiners 4 weeks, for PhD 6 weeks, and then we still have to come back to the university and approve the examiner reports. It has to go back to you and your supervisor to attend the corrections. You still have to hand in your final copies. So if students hand in late, then they run the risk of not making it for getting the reports back in time for graduation, which means he or she has to deregister for the degree to be awarded during the December ceremonies. Thank you. Importantly, I'm just going to touch quickly on it. I think Timbeka's slides covered most of it, but I'm just going to reiterate quickly. M's and D's 6 months for dissertation, coursework, masters 6 months after you've registered, Doctoral candidates 12 months, as Timbeka has indicated in a proposal. Faculty postgraduate studies approve lower studies. RecH approves the medium to higher studies. Timbeka also had this one on her slide beautifully with the meeting date. You can also get that. I'm not going to go into detail because Timbeka covered it adequately in her presentation. I have one question.
Happen if I am unable to make it within the 6 months?
Good question. We from our offices, so students register throughout the year. So we do the validations after the semester 2 progress report come in. This is stipulated within the policy, but sometimes there are students. So we run the validations once at the end of the year. So if a new master student that registered in February will pick you up at the end of the year and say you have not submitted your proposal within the designated time of the 6 months. And then we'll have to, based on your progress and in consultation with your supervisor, have to determine and make a decision whether you are allowed to continue for the following year of study with your qualification. But they have to look at analysis and see what interventions was done within the department to enable you to make the deadline, because all our M's and D's students must have their proposals approved within the first year of studies. But we'll pick it up in the progress reports. And if there's challenges, you need to speak up with your supervisor that they can create an environment to enable you to complete your research proposal. But we're in close contact with the supervisors, departments, if you have problems where students are not progressing, or sometimes there's some problems or areas, they raise it to the Faculty Postgraduate Studies Committee, and a concession is made in those instances where it might genuine reasons why the student wasn't able to complete that task or action by the stipulated deadline. But within health sciences, we are prioritizing and we want students to progress. So we're putting monitoring steps with these type of things, because if you were not able for an M to submit a proposal within a year, we would like to know why. And from department side, speak and take it up. So ensure that you're success and put in strategies in place that would enable you to complete your proposal and support you in that role. Thank you. As well studies, the M&D policy makes provision where, as I said, sometimes life happens, circumstances change, which does not enable you to full-time study or to pursue your degree further, and you like to inform the university, I'd like to take a break now, just to sort out. There's sometimes it's personal or work circumstances where people say, I've moved to job work, I've started a new job with new responsibilities, I knowing myself and the pressure at work, I might not be able to give my full attention to my studies. Then students have that option of applying for an abeyance in studies. Please do not stay away. Inform the university of your intention. So in extraordinary circumstances, can be anything. Application for abeyance for the defined period of time can be requested. If you apply for an abeyance studies for up to 1 year, the university can approve. At our faculty level, if you need, some students have 1 year and then the circumstances hasn't changed that would enable them to continue for the following year, students can request special circumstances with this deviation, exceptional cases as indicated in the policy, that then it goes to the University Postgraduate Studies Committee for approval if you're applying for an abeyance in studies for the second time. But it's good to know beforehand if you find yourself in that situation or you're unable to renew your registration for the following year of study, you know you have the option of applying for abeyance in studies. Some of the students apply for abeyance in studies if it's early in the year and you know the challenge that you are having with registration, you can submit before you have registered, renewed your registration. The policy also makes provision. Sometimes after you've registered, your circumstances change. You've registered in February and May, you've picked up this problem, you're unable to do it. You can also submit your abeyance in studies application after you've registered. So you can either submit it, you haven't registered, or you can do it if you have registered. Sometimes it has happened over exceptions where students found themselves and that the policy does make provision. So whether you're registered or unregistered. Thank you. I have a question.
Just what happens then if, for example, you apply for abeyance and you had already paid your fees?
For the students that have registered, after it goes to faculty postgraduate for approval, there's a special code that we do the cancellation for you. Students get 100% of their registration fees back if they apply for an abeyance in studies if they have registered. So you'll get your enrollment fee, you get your period of study for that year to be credited on your account. So you will not be held liable for that year of studies that you have applied for abeyance in studies. Thank you. My next slide covers the extension of studies. I've elaborated on the maximum duration of studies. Sometimes it happens you are almost complete, but maybe just need an extra 6 months to wrap it up with your supervisor. You're almost there, but not ready to submit. Come year 4, if you're registered for a master's degree and you've exceeded the maximum duration of studies, you need to apply for an extension in studies in order to renew your registration for the following year. So at faculty level, same as with the abeyance in studies, faculty can approve an extension in studies up to 1 year. Meaning, I'll use an example of a master's degree, part-time, 4 years. You go into year 5, faculty postgraduate studies committee approves. By God's grace, you'll finish. Sometimes there's still some things or there was delay in data collection. You have to wait for people to get the approvals. It goes in second extension in studies for year 6. You'll have to go to the university postgraduate studies committee to apply for an extension in studies. Anything other than after that all goes to the university postgraduate studies committee meeting for approval. But most of our students endeavor to complete within the maximum duration of studies. But this is as per the policy if you find yourself in this situation. This is the exciting part that I absolutely love. The end of the road is in sight. You can now hand it. So with you and your supervisor, when your dissertation thesis, treatise, treatise, nears completion, this is compulsory. Student must inform faculty academic administration, our officers in writing of his or her intention to submit his or her treatise, dissertation, thesis for examination. This is critical, cannot emphasize it enough. Reason why you have to inform the university of intention to hand in your assessment copies. Your supervisors need to appoint an examination panel for you. And we need to have that done at least 3 months before you hand in your assessment copies. So they need to find in industry experts in the field to examine your studies. The sooner it's done, the better. For AM is 2 examiners, for a D is 3 examiners. Preference are usually given for the Ds must be at least an international examiner. So it's lots of consult or request. The supervisor needs to do this. Identify the examiner submitted to faculty postgraduate for approval. Then we know you are good to go. You get to hand in. Sometimes where we miss maybe the appointment examination panels, if students didn't hand in the intention to submit, who would have known the student is nearing completion of the studies? So that's important responsibility for the students to do. Students fill it in and supervisor endorses and submit it to faculty. We bring it to our faculty postgraduate committee meeting to plan for the assessment period that is coming to see we've received and do analysis. We've received 50 intentions to submit. This is how many students was able to hand in the assessment copies in terms of completion as well and throughput rates for the faculty. So it's important intention to submit. You can submit either for December. So it's this year of study. We have graduation ceremonies in December where MSND's degrees are awarded, or you can hand in intention to submit for the April next year. So you'll have 2 opportunities to hand in your assessment copies. If you miss December graduation, you will make it for April. Okay. As I said, such notice must be given by the deadline published in the university calendar in April. Usually for December, it's in April 1st week that we're already preparing for the M's and D's that are going to graduate in December. And for April next year is usually in August that the intention to submit must reach our offices. Then most importantly, we'll touch on the deadline for handing in assessment copies. A call goes out from the examination office. It's usually the first Friday in August for December. So your intention to submit is in April. You hand in your assessment copies in August, and then you're graduating in December. For the April graduations, usually the first week in December, handing in assessment copies. Your intention to submit must have reached our office in August. Hand in your assessment copies in the December first week for examination, and you'll graduate in April the following year, provided your reports are successful. It's very important with the deadlines once you reach at this stage. If you are safe, if you hand in time with the university deadlines. If there's any delays or problems, the university must honor that to do everything they can to have your examiner reports back. But if you hand in late, then there's no guarantee of your examiner reports being back in time for graduation, which means there's additional fees that you have to pay for re-registration for the following year in order for your degree to be awarded in December. This is my last slide. As I said, all glorious and happy occasion for all of us. Once you get your outcome of your examination, you've handed it, our officers will let you know. Here's your completion letter. You've completed your degree. The assessment and graduation section will inform you of your arrangements for graduation, your RSVPs that you need to do in order to attend. The awarding of the degrees is a clear examination outcome positive and compulsory requirement. You must do your corrections. Final electronic copies of the treatise, dissertation, thesis have been submitted by the deadline for December, April graduation. So after you have handed in your assessment copies, you've gotten your corrections, worked through it with your supervisor, you need to submit your final revised thesis, treatise, dissertation for graduation. And your graduation status will not be linked if you do not comply with that last requirement in submitting the final copies for graduation. I thank you for your kind attention. If there are any questions or answers, I'm available. Be it online, in the house, in the venue. I cannot see the screen, but is there anybody that hand is maybe up on the Teams platform before I conclude? Doesn't look like. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. Please, a round of applause again for our academic faculty manager. I'm sure it's a lot to grapple at a time. You may have been overwhelmed with the huge information, but be rest assured that we will follow up on the processes as you get to that stage. You will be reminded. And please remember that your supervisors, promoters are there to assist you. So as soon as you hand in, for instance, your proposal, feel free to ask your supervisor what was the next stage. Feel free to contact the research directorate to ask what is the next stage so that you don't miss out on anything. Okay, and she said something very vital. If for any reason, you feel you need what people may call a gap year, a year of abeyance, please don't just decide and abscond. Communicate the research directorate so that it will be duly noted and officially approved. That way you don't need to reapply again. So please just know that we are all here to assist you. Feel free to communicate us, okay, if there is anything you are unsure about. Once again, a big thank you to Tembeka from the Research Directorate for the very first presentation. You can see the number of minutes given to these two presentations because it's vital, but we are also aware that you're not going to be able to just memorize everything. So please know that stepwisely, you should consult and receive guidance. Thank you so much once again, Marilyn, the Faculty Academic Admin Manager. We have actually delved into our tea by virtue of the fact that we started 10 minutes late. So please, we are not going to take long in the tea. I have the understanding that our tea is ready outside. Can we please come back 10:35, just 5 minutes into the next session, please? Thank you so much.